locked in. Tell me that you locked in.
Yeah.
I'm locked in. I'm locked in.
Yeah. Cal.
You're already committed. So
And we're back with the morning lock-in. I told y'all I was gonna have some special guests every episode. You know, I got some friends in some high places, but I wouldn't even call them a friend because it's a family member. You know, when you got people in high places, you gotta use them. You know, I'm just happy to be associated with the guy. I got the czar of the playbook, football aficionado, Emory Hunt on the telephone. How you doing this morning, Emory?
I'm doing fine, Norman. I appreciate you having me on. Good to talk to you.
No, I would say how's the family doing, but you are family, so I know how you're doing. So, you know, that was easy. But how have you been spending your free time in the quarantine? Because you're a busy guy. You're all over the country, year-round covering football in every state. How have you been spending your downtime during this quarantine?
Well, and you're right. You know, being not able to go to different places and travel around like I normally do during the spring and summer before training camp hits, it allowed me to sit back and just kind of, you know, reevaluate where I want to take football game plan and, you know, spend some time just relaxing because you don't normally get a chance to just sit back and just kind of, you know, get back to neutral and relax and kind of get mentally right. You always run a risk of burning out when you're constantly on the go. But the pandemic for me has kind of been a blessing in disguise because it has allowed me to be able to recharge my batteries, catch up on some reading material, and just kind of think and plan about where I want to take football game plan moving forward.
Speaking of taking football game plan, yesterday you made 13 years. From the beginning to now, what can you give people about your journey of starting to the finish point now and what you have learned in developing your own brand and staying consistent with it for 13 years when a lot of people, they give up really easily?
Well, that's the key. You have to stay with it. You have to stay consistent. You know, and I made a point to post a video yesterday on Twitter about, you know, the first time we did video when we wanted to make the transition from a website to YouTube, which was fairly new at the time, and to show people, you know, people see my videos now and think, you know, oh, wow, there's a ton of production there. There's a huge presence, and there's this, you know, you're really polished and good at what you do, and you make things look really well. Yeah, but that wasn't always the case. That's, you know, 11 years in the making. So I wanted to show what the first video looked like in 2009. And it's, you know, it's a part of the story that a lot of people don't want to talk about or don't want to, you know, face, but that's the true part of any, you know, business story, or I don't want to say success story. I guess you can call it success. You know, I still think I'm building my story, but, you know, just when you look at where it was in 2009 and how cheap or bad it looked, you know, looking at it from a 2020 lens, but to see the growth that you've made, you know, in that whole time and during that process, it makes it all worthwhile. It's almost like, you know, everyone was watching the No Limit Chronicles documentary with Master P, and you see before he dropped Ice Cream Man, he had maybe 4 or 5 albums that were completely garbage. And if you look at it from a, man, these albums are whack perspective, and not from a, well, I'm going to just keep putting out albums because I'm going to continue to get these reps, and eventually I'm going to get better. And so when he dropped that album, I think it was The Ghetto's Trying to Kill Me, that was, I think, year 5 into his whole process of making albums, and that clicked, and the next thing you know, Ice Cream Man hit, and so on and so forth. But, you know, I look at it like that. You know, had I not been doing those videos early and getting all of those reps, you know, it wouldn't have prepared me for where I am today to be doing college football broadcasts or, you know, making videos and being on shows to where it looks like, man, this guy was a seasoned pro from day one. But now you have to go through those struggles in order to get to the other side. I think a lot of, you know, young people or businesses that are in this landscape, they want to have that immediate impact right away. And really does take time, and you really have to be humble enough to understand, you're not the best at it right now, but eventually with reps, just like sports, you're going to get better at it. You get more consistent, and if you stick with it, you'll be able to see it through.
And that's why I want to really give you your flowers, just because, like you said, people don't see or had to go back and see the first video when you first started it. People wasn't really proponent on the YouTube space like you was doing it in the segments, the commercials. You really was a proponent and a pushing of this. I don't even want to say like a visual sports concept that's kind of go around and has blossomed to Instagram stories and Snapchat and TikTok when it all kind of started on YouTube, back in pre-2010. And that brings me to my next question. Did you think that you would have went this far without having to, per se, work for a national media outlet?
Yeah, I mean, that was part of the plan. It doesn't sound like, it's believable, but it's true. When we started Football Game Plan, it was all about, ultimately, this is what we want Football Game Plan to be. And come hell or high water, we're going to make it work. And, so when you're creating content and not being afraid to get out there by yourself and do stuff that no one else is doing. Again, when we started doing YouTube videos, everyone was, hell-bent on, hey, written content on the website. This is the website. We're going to check out these articles. And we were doing video, and no one really was doing that. It was just us and people at major networks. And so we had full confidence in calling our stuff the Football Game Plan Network, where you can come get videos and all kind of cool stuff. And when we say network or TV show or show, people instantly were saying, oh, what channel is it on? And we'd say it's on YouTube, and they'll instantly go, oh, okay, it's on YouTube. But now you fast forward to 2020, and YouTube is the place to be.
The word channel is synonymous with YouTube now, where there's TV. Nobody's asking what channel it's coming on television. They're asking, what's your YouTube channel?
Bingo. And even in 2011, when, we had a live Saturday morning radio show on Blog Talk Radio, so it was podcasting. It was before podcasting became cool. And we used to tell people we have a radio show, could check it out listen to it every Saturday. And people would say, oh, what station? And say, well, it's on Blog Talk Radio. I could send you the link. Like, oh, it's an internet radio. Oh, okay. But now you look at it, podcasting is the thing to do.
Yeah.
And if you don't have a podcast, you're doing it wrong. So that's twice we have been out in the space solo before anyone else. And because we believed in the product and believed in the content, and that was the biggest thing. We believe so much in our content and our product that the platform didn't matter. As long as people got the content and got the information, that's all we cared about. We didn't care if it was on YouTube or on ESPN. As long as you got the information, you're going to come back and seek that information and seek that content. And that's why we knew early on that, hey, if we just keep producing the information like we're doing it and the content like we're producing it, people will come and check it out regardless. And we kind of saw a little bit of how the world was changing in the sense that people were becoming more mobile. Technology was growing exponentially every year. So, and we knew people didn't like to read. People would rather watch something than read something. So at the end of the day, when, we were on a platform that showed you video and gave you something to listen to as you walked away from wherever. You didn't have to be married to a TV station or a television set. You could literally go about your day and have our video playing in your pocket or watching it while you ride the bus to work or whatever. And that's where we thought, hey, if we just keep producing good content, we'll become the expert in this space. And that has really carried us to where we are now.
Y'all hear that, man? Football Game Plan, Emory Hunt is dropping gems. Forget the platform, put out the content. Now, let's switch over to NFL. Biggest NFL talk right now, other than COVID, is Jamal Adams. Jamal Adams got traded from the Jets to the Seahawks. Two first-rounders, a third-round pick in exchange for a player and a fourth-round pick. Do you think they gave up too much, the Seahawks, and who do you think is the winner of the trade?
Well, I kind of see both sides of it. If you're the Jets and you trust in your ability to draft well, then you won the trade. If you're Seattle and you view Jamal Adams as the missing piece to the defense to get back to that Legion of Boom that helped you get to a Super Bowl, along with the quarterback that you currently have, then you won the trade. So it all depends on how both teams manage to handle the acquisition. And I think when you look at it from that lens, you can see, okay, if we got a missing piece, then giving up these picks that are probably going to end up being, 30, 31, 32, then it's that's fine for us. It's not like we're giving up these first-round picks and we expect to finish, dead last in the league and essentially giving up a top 10 draft pick. And if you're the Jets, hey, we'll give up Jamal Adams if that means us getting two premier talents next year because we know how we scout and how we draft. We're going to be able to find guys to be able to supplement that loss and get them on younger, cheaper contracts. So it works out for both teams if it ends up being exactly what they wanted it to be.
Now, if you are another team in that NFC West, aren't you upset that they just keep sending weapons of mass destruction into the division and making it more and more difficult? Because, man, if I'm in the NFC West right now, I'm terrified.
It's interesting because it's sports and it's competitive, and you love the competitive nature because, okay, you guys added that talent, cool. And we have a chance to get better, and we have another opportunity to show that why just because you made that acquisition doesn't make you the best team in the division. And you got to look at it as competition. And if you see it as competition, I want you to have the best team possible because when we beat you, we beat the best. And so I want you to keep adding talent. I want you to add all the best players. It's going to make me raise my level of play and force me to bring my A game every time we play. And if teams are looking at it from a competition perspective, then, yeah, I think they're all for it. But you got to like the strength of the division top to bottom. The NFC West has gone from being a significant strength to it fell off a couple of years to where it was just one or two teams. But now you look at Arizona and what they've done. San Francisco was in the Super Bowl. Seattle is Seattle. They've been consistent. The Rams been to the Super Bowl. So you have to look at the division as, hey, they've done a good job of weathering the storm. And now on the back end of it, they look like four legit contenders in the NFC.
Now, piggybacking off that with the NFC, why do you think the NFC, well, in my opinion, the NFC is so much of a better talent as a conference than the AFC? Top heaviness. I mean, barring the Ravens and Kansas City, it just seems as though the AFC has a drop-off right after those two teams, where the NFC, it's a dogfight every year, and it could be anybody that come out of the NFC that represents.
That's a great question, a great point of view, because when you look at the NFC, you kind of see different teams every year. Think about, where you're located in Louisiana and how many times the Saints look to be the team to beat in the NFC, only to not get to the finish line. You have the Rams one year. You have, Minnesota making a deep run, and then San Francisco overtaking Minnesota, getting to the Super Bowl. And you have so many different teams in every division, East, South, North, and West, to where it makes the NFC so competitive. I do think a lot of it is due to the way that these front offices are set up and how well these coaches are, to where they're bringing in talent, they're developing talent, they're replenishing talent. And that makes the division, competitive all across the board.
Emory, this is Lane, Norm's producer. I have a question for you. Do you think this season that the NFC South would be the toughest division in all of the NFL because of Tom Brady and Breeze and what Carolina's doing?
You know what? It's interesting because when you talk about those two teams, you also have to bring up Atlanta. I feel like Atlanta got better as well, and their offense, if you have a healthy Todd Gurley to go along with that passing game,
11 first
their
round
offense
picks
should be right up there with New Orleans. And then Carolina's question mark for me would be defensively. They got a lot of young players on defense, and will that be enough considering where we are now in this COVID-19 era where you didn't have, mini camp and OTAs and a truncated training camp and no preseason. But the offense just looks good. You know, you got Bridgewater, you got McCaffrey, you got really good weapons at wide receiver, solid offensive line, and, you know, the continuity with Joe Brady and as well as Bridgewater having worked together in New Orleans in 2018. So, yeah, this division, I think you could make a case for the NFC South or West being strong. The NFC East looks strong, too. You know, when you factor in Washington's defense and what that could potentially look like in the growth that you expect from Dwayne Haskins in year 2, along with the Cowboys and Eagles and Giants should be better. So I do think if I had to rank them, it would be probably a tie between the South and the West, and then the East, and then the North would be last.
Now, piggybacking off of speaking about what to expect this offseason, you know, you've been around NFL football, been around football all your life. Without having any preseason games, limited OTAs, limited mini camps, limited contact, what do you think, if there was a football season, would be the repercussions of said little practice or time together with each other as teammates or going against opponents?
I think it'll look a lot like the 2011 season when they had the lockout.
Okay.
And, you know, but I do believe even if we had a preseason, what's interesting is that we always joke that the first 2 to 3 weeks of a regular season is essentially the 5th and 6th preseason games because the games are so sloppy. And, you know, because it's the first time the starters are playing together for a full game, so you don't see, you know, the continuity or cohesiveness there. So I do think, you know, we'll see teams probably, you know, hit the ground running. I think we're going to be a little bit in for a surprise because teams won't have those preseason games where you're sitting out starters. They're getting reps. It's going to look a lot like college football, and we see college football teams are able to hit the ground running, you know, week 1 after just practicing for a full month leading into, you know, week 1 or week 0. So I do think that, you know, because of that and because you're going to have guys getting the reps and working together by unit, they'll be more apt to hit the ground running, even though they hadn't played a full game. But at least we know they practiced the 1s versus 1s, you know, 2s versus 2s, and so on and so forth. You know, in the preseason, we see that broken up where you may have a couple of starters out there for 4 or 5 plays. The bulk will be played by guys that probably won't be on the roster. And you take that away, I do think we'll see much more you know, a cohesive group hitting the field week 1. It still won't be the best quality until about week 3. But I do think we'll see a little bit more of a cohesive group, you know, starting the season.
With the limited amount of mini camps and no preseason games, how difficult do you think it will be to cut players?
Oh, it's very difficult because you saw the difficulty in, you know, just them getting from the 90 players to the 80 players. And it was even difficult acquiring players. There were a ton of guys that were on the cusp of getting drafted and maybe on the fringe of being a priority free agent that are still sitting out there because they didn't have those tryouts that you normally have, you know, during the offseason right after the draft. You usually bring in 90 guys for a rookie minicamp. You know, you have the drafted guys, you have a bunch of tryout and first-year guys out there as well competing. That didn't happen. So you have a bunch of guys that, you know, didn't get drafted, that just didn't have an opportunity to get a chance. And so now them going from 90 to 80 took away an opportunity for a bunch of others to get on that 90-man roster. And so you bring 80 to training camp, and it's like, man, you know, I know they expanded the practice squad, and, you know, that's a great thing, but it's going to make it even tougher for guys to get those reps to be able to showcase themselves because of no preseason game. And now you have to really give the reps to the guys that need it, your starters, key reserves, and maybe some rookies that you're expecting to play a little bit. But guys that you're expecting just to be out there, I hate to say it, but camp bodies, those guys will find it tough to really shine, to make a play and get their name heard. So it's going to be tough for coaches to get true evaluations. Hopefully those guys that they made that 80 roster, and you're looking at maybe another 10 guys to where they're going to get down to 70 or even 65, whatever the number may be when you add the expanded practice squad. Maybe those guys are already earmarked for the practice squad. And if you have to cut maybe 5 players, it's going to be tough because you really want to work with them, but you just don't have the roster space.
Now, in a perfect world, football is going to happen without anything happening, without any hiccups. If you had to build a bubble for the NFL, would it be a bubble individually that teams would manage, or would you think that it would be more smarter to put all players, trainers, coaches, and media in one location, kind of like how the NBA is doing?
I think that would be the best option if I were in charge. One thing's first, you're going to have people take responsibility for themselves and their situation. So you have to, it's almost like the buddy system. You have to trust the person next to you to do the right thing. That's why the NBA bubble is working. That's why baseball's bubble is not working, and so you have to be able to, or not non-bubble, but their season is seeing a lot of, cases because guys went out, partied, or going to a bar, casino. You can't do that in this environment when you're trying to play a season. So that's number one. But if I were to operate a bubble, you look at where the cases have dropped or the virus has been under control, and that's New York and New Jersey. So, and the good thing about New York and New Jersey is that it's heavily populated, but you also have a lot of hotel space, a ton of hospitals, and a ton of quality stadiums. So you can really bubble teams into 4 spots. You could have a team in New Jersey that can utilize both. You could have 4 teams in New Jersey that can utilize both MetLife Stadium as well as stadium in Rutgers, as well as the stadium at Princeton. So that's 3 right there that can, you can bubble teams there with a lot of hotel spaces. You look at New York, you have Stony Brook University out there on Long Island that you can utilize. You have the stadium out there at Hofstra. They stopped football, but they still use that stadium for soccer. So you have that stadium. You have the ability to, put 4 or 5 teams out there in that division and put them on Long Island. You have teams upstate New York because you have Syracuse, you have Buffalo, you have the University of Buffalo as well as the Buffalo Bills Stadium. So you have 2 stadiums. You have a lot of hospitals and hotel space out there. Syracuse, you have the stadium, the Carrier Dome, and you also have a lot of hotel space around that area, so you can quarantine guys there. There's ways to get it done in this area, and you're able to house teams. Maybe you house 8 teams in 3 spots, or 4 teams in 8 spots. You have a lot of space and opportunity here. You have Albany, where you have the stadium in Albany, the college, University of Albany. That's the state capital of New York. So there's ways for them to be able to quarantine and create a bubble, a football bubble, so to speak, by creating opportunities for 4 teams to go in different spots or 8 teams to go in 4 spots, and work your season that way and just play the entire season in New York and also New Jersey.
I like that. 8 teams in 4 spots, because you could just segregate them West Coast, North, South, East, and then just have them travel, intermittently between the 4 regions of how they're separated. But I'm running out of time. I enjoyed having you on again, and you've always been a big inspiration to my career as a broadcaster. Again, congratulations on 13 years of FootballGamePlan.com. Here's to another 113 years. Have a cigar and a medium steak on me when you get a chance. Make sure y'all go out there and y'all follow him. That's Emory Hunt, the Czar of the Playbook, at FBallGamePlan on Twitter. He's also on Instagram, at YouTube, all same channels. Emory Hunt, the Czar of the Playbook. Thanks for hanging out with me, man.
Appreciate you, Dolman. Great work you're doing there. I love you, man. Keep building your brand, and great show. I listen to it every time you're on the air. Thanks a lot for having me on.
And again, that was the man, the myth, the legend, Emory Hunt, Czar of the Playbook. But I have run out of time.